Hello and welcome to the Elevate podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Nowakowski. I am a salon owner, educator, mindset, and leadership coach that helps salon owners go from overwhelmed and burnt out to motivated and empowered. It is my mission to help you systemize your business, generate more profit, and create a career that you are absolutely in love with. Join us every week to learn about the small shifts you can make to elevate your business regarding mindset, marketing, social media, business systems, and so much more. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Elevate podcast. On today's episode, which was heavily requested, we are going to be discussing the difference between being a salon suite owner and a salon owner. Now, I have been making a lot of posts on social media, making the statement that being a salon suite owner is much different, drastically different, 100% different than being a salon owner. And I'm not doing this to shame the people who have salon suites. I'm making this statement because I've seen so many people who have gone from a salon suite and jumped headfirst into opening a salon and not making it and failing greatly because they assume that being a salon suite owner and a salon owner are the same thing, but just on a slightly bigger scale. Wondering what it's like to work with me? Want to know what I've tried and tested in my salon and how you can create more freedom as a salon owner? I'm excited to offer an exciting way to get my coaching lessons to you in our podcast subscription. The Elevate Insider is an inside look into my coaching calls and includes exclusive content from me. These episodes contain coaching lessons and the exact steps you need to take to grow your salon. Plus, you'll receive special PDFs and supporting documents so that you can easily take action. To learn more and to become an insider, visit opulentbeautypro.com/insider or find an episode of the Elevate Insider on Apple Podcasts. So I really wanted to go into the difference between being a salon suite owner, being a salon owner, and if you are a salon suite owner, really taking into consideration these things before you decide to open a whole ass salon. What gives me the expertise to actually talk about this? I want to dive into that as well. So you know my experience and my background in the industry and with all the things. So one, I want to say that I have worked in a commission salon. I've worked as a chair renter. I own 9 salon suites, which I have worked out of, by the way. I've worked in almost every single salon suite that I've owned. I've kind of jumped around. At that time, I was working in one of my salon suites. I actually had a rental salon, so I was renting out the chairs in my salon because I was a commission salon owner, switched my salon to rental, and then decided to rent out the chairs, and I decided to work privately in one of my salon suites that I do own. And I now have a full-ass commission salon with 14 employees. So I am saying all of these things from experience and not just like pulling things out of my ass. So I just want to make that very clear. This is coming from a place of personal experience. Now, I also want to talk about how everyone's personal experience is going to be so different. Everyone's circumstances are so different. Now, this is just coming from my POV, and I want to share it because I've also coached a lot of salon suite owners who have decided to get out of their salon suite and open a salon. And I've seen some of my clients that I've worked with do this very successfully. And I've also seen a lot of these people that I've worked with do it unsuccessfully and really, really struggle. So I just want to bring awareness to the differences on what these two things are and they entail, and really share my perspective on how to be successful just what to expect when you are making a big transition in your business. Especially a lot of people are, the head of their household, they're single, or they're in a relationship where they're paying most of the bills. So if you are somebody who really relies on your income, making a change like this is something that you should take very seriously, because switching from a salon suite into a salon can drastically change your income. And it can drastically change your life, especially if you're somebody who has a family. I think people assume that they're going to make more when they jump to a salon, and in reality, you actually do not. I want to start off with statistics. And I want to start by saying that the average profit margin from a salon suite owner, and I'm pulling this from the Britt Siva podcast. Thank you, Britt, for doing all of the work and finding out what the average profit is for salon suite owners. I believe that she said the average salon suite, their profit margin can range anywhere from 35 to 45% profit. Now, when you are working in a salon, the average profit margin for a salon is anywhere from 5 to 10%. Now, don't get me wrong. I know when you are in a salon suite, your revenue generated is probably less than the revenue generated if you have a staffed salon. But a lot of people struggle to find staff. And when they do find staff, it's a lot of newer stylists. So I just want to throw that out there. So your profit margin as a salon suite owner is much more than working in a salon. I want to jump into all of the things that really kind of go into the process of opening and working in a salon suite, what that looks like. I always like analogies. It's something that, is very helpful to get people to understand. So I want to start off with the build out process when it comes to opening your suite and opening a salon, because they seem like they're the same, but they're much different. So when you are getting ready to open a salon suite, this is so exciting. All of the excitement boils up because you get to decorate the space that you want. You really get to create your own environment, which can be so satisfying and just refreshing, especially if you've been working in a space that just really isn't your vibe. When I was working at my commission salon, it was absolutely not a vibe for me. It did the trick, but I was at a place where I really wanted control of everything for myself. And when I opened my salon, it was really great to be able to decorate, right? I would say that opening a salon suite and opening a salon is in comparison to renting an apartment and building a house. When you open a salon suite, you get to do all the fun things. You get to fill the space with beautiful furniture. You get to decorate it the way that you want. You get to organize it the way that you want. But you're not really responsible for a lot of the things that cause a lot of stress. So when you are actually building out a salon, one, the investment is much greater. The time investment is much greater. When you open a salon suite, usually it's like a 1 or 2 year lease. When you're opening a salon and you're investing a shit ton of money. When I say build outs, if you have a space that is not built out for a salon, your build out investment is anywhere from $75,000 to $200,000. That's your average build out cost. So we're not even going to touch base on the stress and the financial burden that brings, because a lot of people don't have that money on hand. They have to take out a loan. But when you're building out a salon, not only do you have to make that huge investment, when you do, signing a 1 or 2 year lease on a big investment in that, you're not even going to make your return on investment. So most people who are building out a salon or opening a salon, the time commitment, success or not, is anywhere from a 5 to 10 year lease. Okay. That is a huge time commitment. Now, a lease is a big deal, especially when you are signing a lease with a management company. You're not signing a lease with like a SaaS salon suite owner. It is much different, right? Like if you break your lease on your SaaS salon suite or, Phoenix salon suite, whatever it is, 9 times out of 10, that person isn't going to come after you. I'm not saying that. Don't listen to me, because there are people who will. but the amount of money that they have to spend in legal fees and the amount of money that they will have to invest is not going to compensate for the money that you owe them most of the time. But when you are signing a 5 to 10 year lease, you better be sure that those people are going to come after you for the amount of lease money that you owe. So just keeping that in mind and the pressure and the stress that that creates, right? Your build out can take forever. It's not just putting furniture in a space unless you've already found a space that's previously built out, which you can. That's what I did. Still takes a lot of time, effort, and finances to get it the way that you want. But when you are doing a full ass build out, the time restriction and the time spent is out of your control. There are so many factors that go into it. There are so many inspections by the people that are doing the work, by the village. You have to make sure that everything is up to code. And if it isn't, then you're pretty much not allowed to open. Not only do you have to make sure that things are up to code, there are surprise things that you didn't even know about, like HVAC systems that have to be put in that are thousands of dollars, which can totally shift your budget. Certain air filter qualifications and restrictions that you need to have in place, even sometimes sprinklers. Now, I am not talking about these being $1,000 surprise. This is anywhere from a $10,000 to $50,000 surprise. Now, when you have signed a lease for 5 to 10 years, you don't have an option. You need to figure out how you're going to find the money in order to get those things in place. Not only does the inspection stress you out more than ever, it is on their time. And getting people to show up when they say they're going to, a lot of these villages like have certain people and they want you to use certain people to do the build out. And if you don't use certain people, there's a lot of politics involved. It is crazy. But there have been many times when I was doing my inspections, because I've done several, because every single salon suite that I built out has been built out separately and done at a separate time. And I've kind of collected them over the years. They come when they want to. They give you a time frame, like we'll show up, between this time and that time. And you kind of hope and pray that they do. Not saying that all villages are like that, but they're busy, right? And not to mention, if you don't pass inspection or if there's something wrong with the current work, then you have to do the process all over. I have seen salon owners build outs get pushed out months. And do you know what happens? You still have to pay rent. You still have to pay rent on the space unless you've negotiated with your future landlord or your future management company. You usually can get maybe 1 or 2 months free, but sometimes you don't. So you're paying rent on a space, again, something that you have to budget for that isn't even generating revenue yet. And a lot of people who are currently in a suite and then opening a salon, you have to pay double rent. So the financial stress is unreal. So once you've done your build out, you've taken out this loan, there are so many other things that are nowhere near in comparison. And we're going to go over that. But that's why I kind of compare it to owning an apartment and building a house. When you own a suite, nothing is your responsibility. You literally just move your stuff in, you stock, you decorate. Like, it's fun. That is so fun. But when you own a salon, like, not only are you responsible for the major build out, for the financial investment, you're responsible for every single thing in that space. You're responsible for the HVAC system. You're responsible for the air conditioner, which, by the way, if those go out, that can be anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000. You're responsible for the washer and dryer. You're responsible if there's a flood. You're responsible if there's mold. You are responsible for everything, just like a house. When you rent an apartment, you call your landlord, and it's the same thing for salon suite owners. You just call your landlord, and there's a maintenance man there and ready and taking care of everything for you. When you're a salon owner, you have to find the people and do all that stuff on your own, right? Not only is that financially stressful, it takes time. You have to schedule your day. Sometimes you have to reschedule your stylist days. You have people depending on you for their income. It is a lot of stress and pressure. I remember even my one friend, Shelly, who opened her salon while she was going through that whole process. I was like, how are you so calm? Because she had to deal with things like her inspection not being passed because one of her outlets was crooked. So it is just really crazy. So when you are thinking about opening a salon, I'm just going to throw this out there. Talk to the local businesses and see what that process looks like and see how the standards of the village are so you know what to expect when you're making plans for your build out and so that you can mentally prepare yourself for what you're about to go through. Another thing that you have to understand is when you are renting a salon suite, you pretty much have fixed expenses. The cost of product will fluctuate from month to month, but your rent usually stays the same and you have an average increase that happens every year. When you sign your lease, it's like expect a 6% rent increase, every year. When you own a salon, there are so many things that fluctuate. Most salon spaces are not a gross lease. So a gross lease means that everything is included in your rent and you don't have to worry about expenses changing. Most spaces have a triple net lease. And a triple net lease means you are responsible for taxes, outside maintenance, you're responsible for your rent. There are other things that are included in the rent that can change from year to year. Now, I'm going to give you an example for my space. It essentially is a gross lease, but the one thing that we're responsible for is the fluctuation in property taxes for my building. When I tell you that my property taxes that I was liable for my space doubled in 1 year, and I got a surprise $9,000 tax bill at the end of last year, I can honestly say that I wanted to shit my pants. My taxes went from going around to like $3,000 or $4,000 to $9,000. That is a complete shock, especially when you're not prepared for it. You do not expect your taxes to double like that, right? But I live in, the suburbs of Chicago. I live in Cook County, which is the same county as Chicago, and they reassessed a lot of the property in Illinois. If you're watching the news, a lot of homeowners got surprised with, double tax bills and all these things. When you're a salon owner, that's your responsibility and you have to figure it out. I am very lucky that I overpay on my rent and I prepare for things like this. So if you are going to open a salon, this is definitely something that you should consider. But still, that's a $9,000 bill. And honestly, it's going to go up this year. Another thing that happened to me that's unexpected with being a salon owner, my building owner sold. I went from a family-owned building who, the owner was literally down my hallway. I could talk to him about anything. He cared about me. He took care of me. If I needed anything, all I had to do was ask him. He always set me up for success. And now this new management company is corporate. They don't give a shit about me, to be honest. And one of the things that they did was we got our tax bill every December and it was due in January of every year. And it was always the previous year. So my 2023 taxes, which should have been due in January of 2025, because that's how we pay them, they gave it to us 6 months early, the new management company. So I had to come up with another $9,000 6 months later when I just paid my tax bill because they decided to switch the payment date because they can do whatever the hell they want. So these are just some of the small things as a salon owner that we deal with unexpected financial surprises, right? This causes an immense and an insane amount of stress. Financial stress is the killer of good leadership and the killer of passion in our industry for salon owners is financial stress. It is one of the main reasons why the amount of time that salons normally are open are about, I would say, maybe 7 years, 5 to 7 years. Most people close after that because it's just not worth it. Having a salon is just not worth it. Now, when you are thinking about that, it's just something to consider. If you are not able to financially prepare and you have a problem with budgeting and saving, a salon suite would be much better for you because there aren't a lot of surprises, which is great, by the way. So let's go into the day to day and what that looks like, because I think that's important too. When you are a salon suite owner, your main focus is client experience and client retention. That is your main focus. That is where you spend 75% of your time, right? And then you spend, maybe 10% doing orders. Maybe you spend 10% of your time marketing. Maybe you spend 5% of your time doing your, budget or those things like numbers. When you are a salon owner, that is not your focus. That cannot be your focus. Salon owners need to focus on leadership, delegation, staff experience, space management, and ordering is at an all new level, and client experience and client retention. As a salon owner, your main focus needs to be leadership, and it needs to be your staff experience. That is much different. When you go from renting a suite and your focus is client, 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 you're good at that. You have made it and you are at a place where you're like, I can do this with my eyes closed. My clients love me. This is so easy. Clients, are coming and I'm getting new referrals. When you're a salon owner, that can't be your focus. Your focus has to be leadership. And you know what? Most of the time when people open a salon, they fucking suck at leadership. They suck at leadership. They suck at training, and they suck at delegation. And that is how you create a successful salon, because you want to know what? As a salon suite owner, you rely on yourself to pay the bills. As a salon owner, unfortunately, you can no longer rely on your income to pay the bills, because most of the time salon owners' revenue will not cover. And to be honest, if your revenue does cover, you're probably working too much behind the chair and you'll never succeed as a salon owner. You cannot work 40 hours behind the chair, manage your team, and do all the things and be successful. Maybe you can do that for like a year or two, but you get burnt out and it doesn't work. And you know what? Stylists don't want to work for a salon owner that's distracted. Stylists want to work for a salon owner that makes them the focus, that helps them build their career, that is focused on getting them clients and not focused on themselves. I see so many salon owners struggling to get team members. It's because the game has changed. The game has fucking changed. People want a leader. People want to work for someone, not someplace. So if you are not all in on your team will not be all in on your salon, and they will not be all in on you, because it has to be a give. And that's another thing that is so stressful, is that you have to rely on other people to pay your bills. That is scary and can fall apart at any time. My rent is $8,000 a month. I could never afford that on my own ever. That's just my rent, by the way. That's not all of my other expenses. That's not like my support staff payroll. That's not my insurance. My liability insurance, I'm not even going to say what that is because it just went up $300 a month, which is insane. It more than doubled. And that's not my products. That's nothing. I could never afford it without my team. It only takes one person to leave to cripple your entire business and for you to scramble to try to rebuild. And that's another thing. Like right now, I have 2 stylists that are supporting a good majority of the salon's revenue because they're built, they're experienced, they're driven, they're dedicated. I have a lot of newer stylists. I have stylists that have been working for me for a couple of years. I have stylists that just started. I have a variety of different experience in my salon right now. If one of my top stylists were to leave, I would lose 25% of my revenue. Both of them are bringing in a huge chunk because they do extensions and because they built their business and they have that reputation. Imagine being in your salon suite and 25% of your clients just decided not to come back to you. Like, what would you do? Like, that's insane. Like, think about that. Look at your numbers. If you're a salon suite owner and you're generating $10,000 in a month, imagine if just $2,500 of that just didn't come in the next month because they didn't feel like it because they're done with you. That is so scary and very hard to manage, right? Finding stylists is not easy. These are all things that you have to think about. I'm in so many Facebook groups. I comment on things, and some of the things I see, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I would hate to be that person, or what is this person thinking, or how can you treat your team like that? I'm just very bold and say how I feel and say what I think. I think that's important, but I say it in a nice way. But it is hard to find team members out there. It's hard to find renters. It's hard to find people who are dedicated, who want to work. It's not easy out there. So, depending on a team can be, again, very stressful and very hard. Another thing you have to think about is when I was in my salon suite and when I rented a chair, oh my God, was I so resourceful. I was so resourceful. I could make so many different colors by creating different concoctions. I could really just use what I had to create the results that I wanted because I knew how to just pivot. I knew how to save money, right? If I was out of a level 7, I could mix, an 8 and a 6, right? Like these are things that we think about. Your team does not think that way. Your team doesn't care about wasting product. They don't care about, concocting things or being creative or being resourceful. They want what they want. So when you are thinking about your overhead and your expenses, people waste, people don't clean up after themselves, which is very frustrating. So you're doing a lot of cleaning up after people. People steal from you. I've had people steal products from me or fill up their shampoo bottles because they didn't think it was stealing. I mean, the stories that I could tell you over and over. Imagine if someone just decided to walk into your suite and had their 8-ounce shampoo bottle that they bought last month and they brought it in and they just refilled it with your stuff. You don't have control of that because sometimes you're not in the salon. So unless somebody tells you, you just don't know, right? Or unless you watch the cameras, but who wants to watch the cameras all the time? But imagine that you've got 10 people that just randomly walk into your suite and take things because they think it's okay. That's what happens when you have a salon because you verbally have to tell people, no, you can't do that. That's stealing. Can you imagine going into your suite and not having what you need because someone decided to take it home with them because they thought that was okay? These are the things that you're dealing with when you have a salon. There is very, very little control in a big space with a lot of people. When you are in your own salon suite, you have absolute control of everything. So if you are somebody who needs to micromanage, who has to have control over everything, if you are very structured and you know how to order to a T so you don't waste money and all these things, you have to let that go. You truly have to let that go when you own a salon because unless you're going to be at the salon from open to close, which you cannot do that, you will have no life, then these are the things that you just have to mentally prepare for and that you have to have a system, policy, and expectations in place so it stays at a minimum. When it comes to ordering is at a whole new level. You think that you can keep everything and stay on budget, but sometimes you can't. When you need something, you need something. Again, your team isn't as resourceful. You can figure things out when you're a salon suite owner, pick up one for just what you need. But when you have a whole team of people, ordering is magnified. The financial pressure of that is magnified. It is a lot. It's a lot. And the last thing that I want to say when it comes to having a salon suite, actually, there's a couple things that I want to say. Managing people is really hard. It is very hard managing people well so that they love coming to work and so that you can proactively create a culture because culture is the most important thing for your success. That's not the most important thing when you are a salon suite owner. Your client experience and client retention is. But when you have a salon, your culture is your number one thing that is going to keep your business successful because, again, people want to work for the experience, not for the actual name of the business. They want to love coming to work, and you have to do a lot of managing when that happens. You have to have a lot of hard conversations. I can't even imagine if you struggle with having hard conversations with your clients, right? If that's something that's very difficult for you, then having hard conversations with your team members is even worse. It's very, very hard. So, managing people is not for the faint of heart. And, helping people grow, also not for the faint of heart. Not upsetting people is something you have to let go of because your focus has to be the success of the business, not people liking you. Yes, I want my team to like me. I love my team, but you have to do what's best for the business first so that everyone thrives as a whole and everyone grows and has success as a whole. And you're not giving into, each and every person's individual needs, because that is not going to create culture. That's not going to create a team. That's not going to create success. And the last thing I'm going to say is that your decisions affect everyone. You can no longer make a decision like you can at a salon suite and it only affect you. When you are having a salon, everyone's financial success is in your hands. That's in your hands. So, having that pressure and that stress is also something that is very daunting and really difficult at times. The decisions that you make, you have to think about every single team member and how it affects them, how it's going to make them feel. Will they quit? Is it going to hurt them? Is it going to help them? Is it going to help the team? Is it going to help the culture? It's not just making decisions for yourself anymore, which can be hard for people because, let's be honest, sometimes we're selfish. I know when I first opened, I made a lot of decisions based on what I wanted and based on what benefited me. And it was hard to get people to work for me or hard to get people to want to be at the salon because, again, people just think about themselves. And that's not a bad thing. It's just human nature. So that's something else to take into consideration. I hope today's episode was beneficial for you. I hope that you truly now understand that there is a huge difference between owning a salon and owning a salon suite. I know that all of you owning a salon suite are like, it's the same. Like, I do the same things. I challenge you to really think if you want to open a salon. I challenge you to really share your experience if you decide to take the next step with me, because it really, I swear to you, is not. It is kind of on a very, very small scale, but having an absorbent amount of debt for your build out, $100,000 to $200,000, unexpected expenses that pop up all the time, a very small profit margin, which makes it really hard for salon owners to find owning a salon worth it. And the ability to manage people, create culture, and make decisions based on not only your result, but your entire team is something to really take into consideration. If you loved today's episode, please share it with your salon owner bestie. Please write me a review. If you love my podcast, I would love for you to leave a review. It helps the podcast so much. It keeps me going. And it also is something that just makes me feel like this is worth it. And then also, if you are an avid listener, make sure you subscribe so that we can track great data to see how the podcast grows. All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in to the Elevate podcast. If you loved this episode, it would mean the world to me if you would leave a review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen. The Elevate podcast is hosted by me, Patricia Nowakowski, and is produced by Opulent Beauty Pro. To receive my free business guides, visit opulentbeautypro.com/free or click the link in the show notes. You can find me on Instagram at Opulent Beauty Pro or at Patricia_Nowakowski_OBS. If you love this show, please consider subscribing, and we will see you next week.